Good morning, friends, and welcome back to Nella's Nest, where we're healing from trauma with the Word of God. I grew up in New York City, and most people know New York City as, the city of bright lights, tall buildings, and the Statue of Liberty. But that's the part of New York City that the tourists know. The part that we knew growing up in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s was not the New York of bright lights and the Statue of Liberty. It was a different New York. In the 70s, we grew up, me and my family, both sides, we grew up in something called public housing or the projects. And the projects actually was no different than where I lived in Cairo in Egypt or in Medina in Saudi Arabia, where it was a bunch of apartment buildings and people lived in them. Families lived in these apartment buildings. And in the 70s, the projects for us actually was almost like a village. We had cousins and aunts and uncles who lived in the neighborhood around the corner. We felt safe. There was some petty crime, but for the most part, we were safe and we felt that this was our home. But something happened in the 80s, particularly in the mid 80s. And if you're in the ages of, let's say, 40 to 50, and you're from an inner city like New York, you might remember the epidemic of crack cocaine. Crack cocaine came through the inner city almost like a tornado, and it tore families and people apart. Now, during that time, I'm going to tell you a story of what happened during that time. A little boy named Tommy came to my grandmother. My grandmother used to take in foster children, and Tommy was in the foster care system. Tommy was about 3 years old when he came to my grandmother's house. He was a cute little boy. And him and I had a little special relationship because I helped my grandmother take care of him. I remember when I took Tommy for his first haircut when he was 4 years old. That boy screamed from the time the clippers hit his head to the time the clippers were turned off. He screamed. Well, my grandmother one day set up a meeting between herself and Tommy's mother. Now, let me tell you about Tommy's mother and why he ended up in the foster care system. Tommy's mother was addicted to crack cocaine. And she was living on the streets. And she was even selling men access to her body so that she could get her next hit of crack. So my grandmother found out through the foster care agency that Tommy had a little sister out there somewhere. And she said, "This is not good. This family needs to be brought back together." So she prayed about it, and then she asked for a meeting between herself and Tommy's mother. So she met Tommy's mother, and my grandmother encouraged her and told her, "You should clean up your life. You should get off these streets so you can get your children back and live the life that God wants for you." Well, Tommy's mother took the advice to heart, and she started cleaning up her life. And they told her that she had to do 3 things in order to get her children back. She had to have a job, she had to have a certain amount of money in the bank, and she had to have an apartment. Well, how was she going to do all of this when she was living on the street? Well, my grandmother rallied together some of the neighbors that she knew for about 30 years in the neighborhood. My aunt and other people wrote letters to the local officials to try to get her an apartment in public housing. Well, their prayers were answered. They gave her an apartment right in the building next door to my grandmother. And so she had her apartment, and Tommy was able to be reunited with his mother and his little sister that he never knew. The neighbors came together. They gave them furniture, food, clothing for the children. And Tommy and his mother and his little sister lived happily ever after. Wrong. They did not live happily ever after. Well, the first thing that happened was that everything was going right. Everything was going well for a while. Tommy's mom had a job. She even went back to school to become a social worker. But then we noticed that she was gaining weight. And I mean, when she was on the crack cocaine, she was so skinny. So skinny. So now that she was off of it, she was gaining weight very quickly, to the point that she would have to go out and run and exercise to keep her weight down. She was going to school to be a social worker, and she was doing pretty well with it for a while. And then she met a man, and she fell in love. But her love wasn't a healthy love. It was the kind of love that someone has when they are transferring from one addiction to another. And so the relationship ended, and she was brokenhearted. And unfortunately, she returned back to using the crack cocaine. And by the time I saw her when I came home to visit, she was back to being skinny. She even had open sores on her body. I wanted to give her a hug when I saw her, but I was afraid. And it had a very sad ending. But the difference was, by that time, Tommy was old enough that he went his own way and ended up going into the military. And we never saw him after that. Now, not everybody had my grandmother or a grandmother to rescue them. What would have happened if Tommy had been with his mother all those years when she was on the streets, when she was addicted to crack? Well, some time ago, a gentleman contacted me. He said he wanted to talk. And for some reason, men like talking to me. They like telling me their stories, maybe just because I'm a good listener. So we'll just call this man Isaac. Isaac was in his 40s. He was born during that crack epidemic. And his mother was addicted to crack. Tommy told me a story about the household that he grew up in. His mother, addicted to crack, and also giving men access to her body for money. She didn't come to parent-teacher night at the school. She didn't help him with his homework. She didn't cook dinner. She didn't even help him bathe and take care of his personal hygiene. Tommy sometimes would wake up and his mother would be gone. Sometimes she'd be gone for days at a time and he wouldn't know where she was. He had a natural inclination to want to protect his mother, but he was too little. He was only 6 or 7. Sometimes he would come in the kitchen and there would be no food. Or there would be a box of cereal. He would pour out the box of cereal in the bowl, and a roach would crawl out. He would look in the refrigerator for milk, but the milk was gone. And he had an older sister. She was about 4 years older. He was 7, and she was 11. And he remembered a time where they came home from school, and there was a strange guy sitting on the couch. And their mother said, "Go in the room and do your homework, and close the door. Don't come out until I tell you." So they go inside the room. Isaac, he couldn't concentrate. He's pacing back and forth. Again, his natural inclination, he wants to protect his mother, but he's obedient to her because he doesn't want her to beat him like she did the last time. So he's in the room pacing back and forth. His older sister says, "Sit down and do your homework. Mommy said to do your homework," but he couldn't concentrate. About an hour later, Mommy comes knocking on the door. "Y'all can come out now. Here's $20. Go to the store." She tells Isaac, "Go to the store and buy some bologna, some cheese, and some Wonder Bread, and bring me back my change." So Isaac goes to the store. And as he's walking to the store in the neighborhood, he sees a different man, standing on the corner. And this guy is drinking a tall bottle of beer that is normally referred to as a 40 ounce. So Isaac sees the man eyeballing him as he's walking down the street. And Isaac knows who the man is. He thinks to himself, "That's the man that my mommy said was my daddy." But he never said he was my daddy. He never took me out to the baseball field to throw the ball with me. He never took me out to the basketball court to shoot hoops with me. He never taught me how to be a man. He never even acknowledged or said that he was my daddy. But I kind of look like him, but I'm not sure. Now Isaac is growing up like this, age 7. Then he's 8 years old. Then he's 9 years old. Then he's 10 years old. Then he's 11 years old. By the time he's 11 years old, his mom, she starts to clean herself up. She says, "You know what? I'm going to stop smoking this crack, and I'm going to get a job." So she gets into a program. She's trying to rehabilitate herself, and she starts working. But she has to work long hours in order to what? To pay the bills. So Isaac and his sister are left unattended, unsupervised after school. Isaac now is 11. His body's starting to change. He's going through puberty, And as he explained it to me, he was trying to be polite. But I told him, just let it rip. And it got a little graphic because he started to tell me what he was experiencing in his body as a boy who was going through puberty. And he started to develop an attraction for women, older women. The only problem was he didn't know how to really connect to a woman. He didn't know how to really love a woman. He just knew how to use a woman for his body, for her body, in the same way that men were using his mother. So he started learning how to seduce women at a young age. And then the unthinkable happened. I don't think I'm going to tell that part. I don't think I'm going to tell that part. I'll just say this. Parents, you need to be careful with unsupervised children. Children need to know that the eye of an adult is on them most of the time. Because what can happen is people get layers of trauma. Isaac had layers of trauma. The first layer was the abandonment of his father. The second layer was that his mother was emotionally unavailable and she neglected him. The third layer was because he wasn't cared for properly. His mother didn't bathe him. She didn't make sure he brushed his teeth. She didn't brush his hair. So he was going to school ungroomed, smelling bad. Other kids laughing at him, making mockery of him. And then something else unthinkable happened while he was unsupervised, going through puberty, trying to understand his body, nobody to explain it to him. Now he becomes 14 and 15. Now he starts seducing women. Women that are 20 years old. Women that wanted crack, just like his mother. So now Isaac is in his 40s. He has a wife, but he can't control himself. He doesn't know how to be loyal. He doesn't know how to connect. He doesn't know how to love. And that's what he wanted to talk to me about. I don't know how to control myself. I don't know how to stop chasing women. I don't know how to stop this. You see, the will is not strong enough. Oftentimes, we've seen this. When people gain their heavy set, they fight their will to lose weight, but then they gain it back. Or people who fight their will to become more punctual, or to become more conscientious, or to get a better job, or to do whatever they're trying to do. They fight their will, but then they lose it. And they go right back to the pattern that they were in. This is called being in bondage. Bondage mentally, bondage emotionally, bondage spiritually. Let me pause for a second. When a person is in bondage, they're in a loop that they want to get out of, but they can't. It might be about money. It might be about substance addiction. It might be about relationships. Maybe they keep getting in the same kind of relationship. And I spoke about this before, about our mind being like a computer hard drive. Your eyes are the screen. Your mind is the hard drive. And the programs are the ways of behaving, the habits, the lifestyles that a person has based upon the flesh, based upon survival mechanisms, based upon fear, trauma. It's a faulty operating system. There's a virus in the computer of their mind. So that it keeps the person in bondage. And they need a higher power, a stronger power to kick down the door of that prison and free them of their own flesh. Now, when we talk about flesh, we're not talking about this. We're talking about the emotions. We're talking about the mind. We're talking about survival systems. We're talking about fear-based systems. Everything that is opposite of the spirit. In the book of Romans, it talks about the difference between the law of the flesh and the law of the spirit. Now, Jesus came to show us the law of the spirit, how the spirit came in order to free us of this bondage. So I gave you a verse the other day, and I'm going to give it to you again. Psalms 139, verse 23 and 24. This is a verse to begin to deprogram, begin to uninstall that faulty program that came from your childhood, that came from your mother, from your father, your household of origin, the things that you experienced, maybe even something you experienced in your adult life that has caused you to develop a faulty program, a corrupt program that is guiding your life, but it's toxic to you. And you see the results of it. Like Isaac, he saw himself chasing women, even though he has a good wife. He has children. He has daughters. Do you think he wants his own sins to come back on his daughter? That would not be good. But I've seen that happen to people. You see, I'm going to give you this verse. And this is just a verse for beginning the process of uninstall. See, the difference between the human mind and the computer is that when I right click on my computer to uninstall a program, it can't resist me. It has to follow my command because it's an inanimate object. But as humans, we have resistance. We will hold on to a program even though it's harmful to us, or it's harmful to our family, it's harmful to our community or to society. But we'll hold on to the program unless we begin operating in the Spirit. So to begin that process, Psalms 139, search me, O God. Repeat after me. Search me, O God. Now you're going to put up your hands like this. Search me, O God. If the police stop you and they want to search you, you put up your hands, you put up your arms. I surrender. I'm not resisting at all, right? Okay, but you're doing this with God. In the privacy of your room or your prayer closet, search me, O God. Know my heart. Know my heart. In another place in the Bible, it says, Solomon said, be careful about your heart, because from it springs everything. God, know my heart. And then the next part is test my anxious thoughts. Test my anxious thoughts. There's a lot of talk about anxiety today. Anxious thoughts, they have us making quick reactions. You see, that mother who was on crack, that child was calibrating to the nervous system of its mother. If the mother was on drugs, if the mother was running after the wrong men, if the mother felt unsafe, the child's nervous system calibrated to the mother's, co-regulated with the mother's. So we have these anxious thoughts, which make us react instead of respond. There's a difference. So we're asking God, we're inviting Him into our heart. We're inviting Him into our mind. We're getting off the faulty system. We're getting off the survival system. We're getting off of the law of the flesh. And we're inviting God in. Search me, oh God. Know my heart. Test my anxious thoughts. Test my anxious thoughts. And lead me in the way everlasting. I forgot one part. See. I forgot one part. See if there's anything offensive in me. That part. See if there's anything offensive in me. See, we're inviting God into the nooks and crannies of our personality construct, because there's things that you think that are you that are not you at all. You know, when I was growing up, I was the quiet girl, the shy girl. And that was supposed to be part of my personality. But it wasn't. It was a trauma reaction. It was safer to be quiet. Nobody knew that there was all kinds of things going on inside of me. Actually, I wrote a book. And if you would, if you're a parent or if you're a grandparent, you might want to start a conversation with your daughter or granddaughter about what's going on inside of them. So this is one of the books that you can get on Amazon, The Girl Who Feels Too Much. And this has, the other one is, I'm sorry. Okay, let's talk about this one first. The Girl Who Feels Too Much. Now, this is a book about feelings and to start a conversation with someone who's quiet, someone who's constantly on the internet. You can't really get a conversation going. Maybe you say, how was school? And they say, oh, it was okay. And they're quiet. And this is one of the mistakes that parents and grandparents make, is no news is good news. That's not true. So, like Isaac, he was quiet too. Nobody knew how to talk to him. Nobody knew how to pull it out of him. Maybe nobody took the time. But Isaac talked to me. And somebody needs to be able to talk to you right now. So, hold on. Now this part is about reacting versus responding. Because sometimes we react, but that's not from our authentic self. It's from the survival mechanism, right? And so if you were to go through this with your child or your grandchild, you might discover something about yourself. My other book is The Girl Who Was Afraid of Her Own Voice. And this has scenario cards in it to start a conversation, because kids have to be coached up how to respond in certain situations before it happened. See, nobody was there to tell Isaac, listen, you're about to go through puberty, and this is what's going to happen in your body, and this is what you're going to feel. Nobody was there to tell him that. His father was on the corner drinking a 40 ounce. Didn't even acknowledge him. So who was going to teach him? So one of the scenarios in here is about, for example, asking for help. You need help, but you don't want to seem annoying or dumb. What are you afraid might happen? What would you say if you didn't need to sound confident? What's one sentence that feels possible? See, these are tools to help you talk to kids, to help you start a conversation. Some people want to help, but they don't know how. They don't know how to get the conversation started. They don't know how to pull things out of a child. And I promise you, there's a lot going on inside of them that you may not realize. Just like Isaac, just like Tommy, just like me. You didn't have to have a mother on crack to be someone who is troubled, someone who's carrying something heavy. You need to unload it. Invite God in. Invite God in. Invite Him into your personality construct. Search me, O God. Know my heart. Test my anxious thoughts. See if there's anything offensive in me and lead me in the way everlasting. So when a thought comes up or when a reaction starts, you begin to stop yourself. You move a little more slowly. You begin to stop yourself. And this is what I told Isaac. You have to slow down. You have to invite God in. You're not strong enough with your will alone. You have to allow yourself to discover. Allow God to reveal those parts of you that need correction. Those parts of you where fear needs to be removed or uninstalled and faith needs to be installed in its place. My name is Nella J, and I support people in healing from trauma. Take care. Peace.